Do you know how some companies manage to get things right and keep going? Setting goals for yourself is one process, but setting goals for a whole company where thousands of people are involved is a different story. In this video, we'll share secrets of how companies like Google, Netflix, Spotify, and many more manage to constantly find success. It's not all about innovation. Instead, they all follow the same proven framework. Number 1. Intel. We start with Intel because that's when this framework began to take shape. In 1975, and don't worry, this isn't a history lesson, John Doerr, a salesperson at Intel, was introduced to this new framework called OKR. OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results. It's a goal-setting framework that's meant to help companies achieve their objectives in the most straightforward and efficient way possible. For this to work, the objective needs to be concrete, and key results have to be measurable. At the end, you either did it or you did not. There's no gray area. With this framework, John Doerr became one of Intel's most successful salespeople and helped the company to become the giant it is today. And he didn't start there. After his work at Intel was done, he moved into venture capitalism, and one of the first startups he invested in was number 2, Google. In 1999, John Doerr proposed the use of OKR to this cool new startup called Google. Here's what Larry Page had to say about it. OKRs have helped lead us to 10x growth many times over. They've helped make our crazily bold mission of organizing the world's information perhaps even achievable. They've kept me and the rest of the company on time and on track when it mattered the most. Here's how an OKR should look. I want to achieve blank as measured by blank. In Google's case, here's an example of one of their early OKRs. We want to make surfing the web easy and fast, as measured by decreasing the loading page time from 1.4 to 1 seconds by the end of the year. From this example, 2 things are clear. 1, the key results are easy to measure. At the end of the year, you either did it or you didn't. Secondly, it creates very clear tasks for the rest of the team and the goals align. Number 3. Twitter. Between 2010 and 2015, the CEO of Twitter was Dick Costolo. Previously, he spent 2 years at Google, where he learned the value of using the OKR framework to set goals. When he joined Twitter, one of the first things he did was adopting the OKR method to rebuild the company from the ground up. We've adopted that at Twitter. I think it was a super effective way of communicating context to other teams about what they're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. During the same period, Time magazine had named him one of the most influential tech CEOs. And here's a funny story about Dick Costolo. Before he entered the tech world, he was a stand-up comedian. After he landed the Twitter job, he said, "First full day as Twitter COO tomorrow. Task number 1, undermine the CEO, consolidate power." And funny enough, 1 year later, he replaced the co-founder Evan Williams as CEO. Number 4. Netflix. This is a perfect example of a company who knew how and when to innovate. You might not know this, but Netflix used to mail DVDs to your house. Another thing you might not know is Netflix is another giant company that uses OKRs as their core of goal setting. An OKR framework for Netflix would look like this. We want to increase the time users spend on our platform as measured by increasing the retention rate from X to Y and by increasing the amount of original content from X to Y. Here's a follow-up to that OKR. If Netflix wants to compete with other streaming services, they also need to invest in their original content. But big filmmakers are more interested in the movie theaters. By the way, did you know that for a movie to be eligible for award nominations, it needs to play in a movie theater for at least 7 days? Weird, huh? Netflix knows this, and they actually rented one of New York's most iconic movie theaters just for their own special theatrical releases. Number 5. Amazon. One of the biggest companies in the world, run by the richest or second richest man in the world, depending on what Elon tweeted last night, also runs on OKR. Jeff Bezos is a big fan of this system and how he's managed to keep Amazon the leader of e-commerce. His approach to OKRs is built around things that are stable in time. A lot of people asked him how things will change in 10 years, but he said almost nobody asked him what won't change in 10 years. And when you think about it, people will always want to buy a lot of things at low prices with fast delivery. This is true now, it was true 5 years ago, and it will be true 10 years from now. We teach you exactly how to write a good OKR and how to implement them in our Goal Mastery course we launched on Sunday past. We spent over 1.5 years making sure we deliver one of the best learning experiences on this subject. No bullshit, just value. Go to goalsbyalux.com and find out how this course can help you turn your goals into reality. Number 6. LinkedIn. For over 11 years, Jeff Weiner has helped LinkedIn become what it is today. Over 675 million people are using LinkedIn to advance their careers and find new opportunities. Jeff is also a big fan of OKRs and has used this framework to turn LinkedIn into a $20 billion company. In his words, OKRs should be something you want to accomplish over a specific period of time that leans toward a stretch goal rather than a stated plan. It's something where you want to create greater urgency, greater mind share. Number 7. Microsoft. At a very early age, it was clear that Bill Gates was an excellent programmer. In 1978, he promised Intel he would deliver a new update on their Microsoft software in 4 weeks. Intel thought he was crazy and it couldn't happen. And they were right, he failed and delivered 2 weeks late. It turns out Gates is an excellent programmer but a terrible project manager. Now, do you remember John Doerr from Number 1? Guess who helped Bill Gates to manage his goals better and introduced him to OKRs? He and Gates became good friends, and a lot of the framework John Doerr implemented on Intel was transferred to Microsoft. Gates actually wrote about the incident and how OKRs helped to push Microsoft forward in his famous notes, which you can check out at gatesnotes.com. Number 8. Uber. This is a prime example of how a company managed to grow into a huge success using this framework of goal setting. There's this famous napkin where you can see Uber's business model. From you, it's pretty easy to draw the OKR framework. The goal is to increase demand by increasing the number of drivers and the percentage of geographical coverage. It's simple and measurable. Right now, Uber has over 3 million drivers in 65 countries. But with new regulations coming in, it'll be interesting to see how Uber plans to manage the situation. Number 9. Dropbox. We love the origin story because it's one of those classic tales where someone needs something, can't find it, so he builds it himself. When Drew Houston was a student back in 2007, he always seemed to forget his USB stick at home or he misplaced it somewhere. He looked for some solutions but couldn't find anything, so he built one himself, building Dropbox as a startup and launching it a year later. Okay, so that's the story, but how did he manage to grow it to what it is today? Drew said he modeled Dropbox after Google's OKR system, which is based on yearly and quarterly goals. He's also a big fan of a quote from Voltaire, which we actually use a lot in our daily lives. Perfect is the enemy of good. If you want something to be perfect, you'll never get it done. Number 10. Adobe. Before 2012, Adobe used to work with an annual performance review, which did very little to push the company forward. As a matter of fact, it was actually hurting them a lot because the process was tedious, time-consuming, and provided little to no value. For those of you who don't know, when a company does an annual performance review, they look at the last year, find who performed well and who didn't, and act accordingly. Doesn't sound like a pretty fun situation, does it? It makes the employees feel like numbers rather than assets and talents. The company was also planning to move all of their operations to the cloud and to a subscription-based platform, so a lot of things were happening all at the same time. So they decided to scrap everything and start from scratch, but with an OKR system they call check-ins. In this new system, the purpose of the management was to get feedback from the team members on what they plan to achieve in the following quarter and how to help them get there. They realized their greatest assets were coming to work in the morning and leaving to friends and family in the evening, so they built their goal system on that. So Aluxers, we hope you learned something valuable in this video today. Before we get to the bonus, we'd love to know if you've ever used any kind of system to measure and track your goals. Let us know in the comments. And of course, as a thank you for sticking with us until the end, here's that bonus. While the OKR system is great for companies, it also works perfectly on a personal level. Writing a good OKR system for your next time frame will get you closer to transforming your goals into reality. In Goal Mastery, we have an entire module dedicated to helping you write better goal systems for yourself using the OKR method. Go to goalsbyalux.com and use the code MYGOAL for $100 off. We'll see you on the inside.